So today we are going to look at the U.S. men's national team roster for the September World Cup Qualifier, as it was just announced this morning by Gregg Berhalter. And I just want to quickly say that this is just for the September World Cup Qualifier roster, and it's not the roster where the U.S. are going to go with the full World Cup qualifying. I mean, I feel like right now there is definitely some confusion, and I feel like, anytime when the World Cup qualifier roster, especially for the first couple of games release, I know there's going to be a lot of doomers from the U.S. men's national team fan base that is going to complain about the roster, and hence this is also the reason why I don't read the comments on Twitter or even on Reddit of the national team, because there is a lot of toxic kind of comments talk about how this roster is absolute crap, even though there's no doubt that this is probably one of the best, if not, in my opinion, the best roster the U.S. have ever had coming into a World Cup qualifier. But I think the most important thing that people don't get is that this is still only for the September World Cup qualifier. I mean, all these players, not all of them are going to be guaranteed for the next time when World Cup qualifying is going to happen in October, and could definitely be some shakeup depending on injuries, or maybe guys that might perform well with their club that could be able to be on the U.S. men's national team roster heading into the October World Cup qualifier. But that being said, let us actually talk about the September World Cup qualifier, which, by the way, it starts next week, where the U.S. is actually going to be going on the road for the first game of the World Cup qualifier against El Salvador. But in terms of this roster, we'll start with the goalkeeping position, where unsurprisingly there is free goalkeeper that Gregg Berhalter, of course, named. And these free goalkeeper, I don't think should surprise anybody. You got Ethan Horvath, Zach Steffen, and Matt Turner. Ethan Horvath, that of course currently plays for Nottingham Forest, have 7 caps under his name. Zach Steffen plays for Man City, have 23 caps under his name. And Matt Turner plays for the New England Revolution with 7 caps, or shall I say, reigning MLS All-Star MVP Matt Turner, because, he just recently won the MVP award in the All-Star game yesterday, and what a day it has to be for him to win that. And then the very next day, he gets called up with the U.S. men's national team in the World Cup qualifier. And, I talk about the goalkeeping position for the U.S. men's national team, and usually the goalkeeping position isn't a position that has a lot of discussion, because over the year it's usually going to be Tim Howard, and then in case if Tim Howard does went down with an injury, maybe there could be a question of who is his backup goalkeeper, but it's definitely going to be Tim Howard. And we know obviously Tim Howard is no longer the goalkeeper of the U.S. men's national team, and I'm pretty sure these free goalkeeper, they have a big shoes to fill, but certainly there's also this discussion of who exactly is going to be the right one. And to be honest, it's going to be tough for Gregg Berhalter to decide, because I think all 3 of these goalkeepers have been doing very well. I mean, if you want to have a goalkeeper that is just red hot in form right now, it's got to be Matt Turner. I mean, Matt Turner has just been incredible with the New England Revolution, and we also saw what he did in the All-Star game, making some big save, and also becoming the hero in the penalty kick shootout, and not to mention what we saw in the Gold Cup, and his performance during the Gold Cup has just been incredible. So yeah, I feel like if Gregg Berhalter had to decide, my option, if I was in his shoes, I would have chose Matt Turner, but I will not be surprised if he decided to go with Zach Steffen, because, I know even though Zach Steffen hasn't been appearing a lot of games for Man City, although he's been appearing in games when Man City isn't really playing in big games, like maybe in cup competition, he has looked very well when he is playing in those games. So I have a feeling most likely he might go with Zach Steffen, but don't be surprised if Matt Turner might actually get the start. And also, this is not to discount Ethan Horvath, and obviously we haven't forgot his heroic that he had in the CONCACAF Nations League final, and he's also doing relatively well so far with his new club at Nottingham Forest. But I just feel like right now Matt Turner has got to be the guy that start the spot, but don't be surprised, it's actually going to be Zach Steffen. That's going to be the first choice goalkeeper. Now, in terms of the defender, we actually have 10 defender that Gregg Berhalter decided to call up. Got George Bello from Atlanta United with 3 caps. John Brooks from Wolfsburg with 43 caps, one of the most senior player on this U.S. men's national team side. By the way, there's nobody on this U.S. men's national team side has got more than 50 caps. Or actually, no, there's only one other player that has 50+ cap, and that is DeAndre Yedlin. But besides him, there's nobody on this team has 50+ caps, which just tells you this team is a very young team. And especially when you look on into the midfield and on the attack, that shows you how there's a lot of these players that hasn't been with this national team for a while, and at least been in a World Cup before. But after that, we got Sergio Dest with Barcelona with 11 caps, Mark McKenzie with Ghent with 6 caps, followed by Tim Ream with Fulham with 45 caps. There was a lot of criticism that I hear about Tim Ream being selected here, and I understand the criticism because I know Tim Ream hasn't really been one of the fan favorite, and there's been times where I've seen him make a lot of mistake when he's with the national team. But I thought at times he also looked decent, and you always say, as much as I know the U.S. have a lot of talented player to choose and a lot of young talented player, you still need to have some veteran present, and Tim Ream is a guy that is pretty much a veteran present there with one of the most caps on this team. In fact, I think it's the second most cap, just behind DeAndre Yedlin. But then we got Anthony Robinson, who currently also played with Fulham with 10 caps, followed by Miles Robinson, the Gold Cup final hero, having 9 caps so far. And certainly, I mean, with the performance he had, not only in the Gold Cup final and scoring that winning goal against Mexico, but throughout this Gold Cup, he has been a standout player in that back line for the U.S. No surprise he gets called up. Same goes with James Sands, did very well during the Gold Cup. Well, he deserved to be called up. And then you got DeAndre Yedlin, who is the most senior player on this U.S. men's national team with the most caps, with 64, currently playing for Galatasaray. And then you got Walker Zimmerman, and I am so happy that Walker Zimmerman actually finally gets a chance. I mean, this has been a guy that I've been talking about throughout the year, that I hope one day the U.S. will finally give Walker Zimmerman a fair chance to be representing the U.S. men's national team, because he is definitely a very elite defender. And I know over the years people would say, well, you don't usually want to call MLS defenders because, MLS is not known for kind of being a defensive league. But when you look at how good Walker Zimmerman has, not just with Nashville SC, but also with the U.S. men's national team, especially during the Gold Cup, where he was an absolute rock there at the back. It's no surprise that he gets a chance here once again. And yeah, it'll be very interesting to see. I'm not quite sure he might be a first choice center back, because I think in terms of the first choice, I would say it's got to be Mark McKenzie and John Brooks there in terms of the center back partnership. But don't be surprised if guys like Miles Robinson or Walker Zimmerman can potentially challenge for that spot. But yeah, I think in terms of center back partnership, it's most likely going to be John Brooks and Mark McKenzie at the back. Now, in terms of the midfield position, there's only 5 midfielders that Gregg Berhalter called up, which is definitely not as much as he used to call up, and this kind of makes me a little bit concerned with him calling up just 5 midfielders, and if one of them went down, that does test the depth of this team. But that being said, in terms of the midfield bunch, I guess maybe this one might be a little bit controversial, and a lot of U.S. fans were not happy in terms of some of the midfielder that was selected. Kellen Acosta, I think Kellen Acosta deserved this because he had a relatively good Gold Cup with the U.S. And, if you, of course, have a great Gold Cup with the U.S. during that tournament, I feel like there was definitely a high chance that they, of course, would get picked in the World Cup qualifier. So there, Kellen Acosta is an example of that, currently playing for the Colorado Rapids with 37 caps. And then we got Tyler Adams, no doubt one of the most talented player on this U.S. men's national team, currently playing for Leipzig with 14 caps. And then you have probably one, if not the most controversial pick throughout this roster, and the guy that I think has really got a lot of hate for being in this roster, and that, of course, is Sebastian Lletget. And I understand the hate that that Sebastian Lletget is getting for being on this team, because when you look at how he has performed during the Gold Cup, and even during his time with the Galaxy, he has not performed in a way that you would think he would deserve a spot in the U.S. men's national team. But something tells me that Gregg Berhalter, it seems like he really trusts Sebastian Lletget. And when you look at these last couple of time when Berhalter did name the roster. It's always legit being in that spot, and maybe this is kind of an example of the fact that he might need kind of like a presence there in the midfield to basically be kind of like a veteran presence, and I think maybe Sebastian Lletget is that kind of player. But yeah, I can understand why there's a lot of people are not happy about that, because, you know, again, Lletget, he hasn't really done well this season, both with the Galaxy or the U.S. men's national team. But one guy that definitely is gonna be a player that could be starting in that central midfielder role is Weston McKinney, another one of the most talented player on this U.S. men's national team, playing for Juventus and have 24 caps. And then you got Cristian Rodon, who is playing for the Seattle Sounders with 25 caps. He's another player that I heard people are kind of criticized Gregg Berhalter of choosing him, but I thought Rodon has had a good season so far for the Sounders. In fact, you could even argue that he might be one of the most, if not the most important players to that Sounders team. And even during the Gold Cup, I thought he looked decent to be called up. But I guess this is also kind of maybe Gregg Berhalter won that narrative of how, you know, when the U.S. does play against El Salvador, there's a chance that both Rodon brothers will be playing in that game. But this will be really the first time where both of them are playing against each other, because, you know, Christian's brother Alex decided to choose El Salvador instead of representing the U.S. men's national team. And yeah, I can't wait to see that kind of storyline and how, you know, I think that's maybe kind of one of the reasons why Cristian Rodon decided to be called up. But I don't think that's really the main reason. I think he definitely deserved to be called up, especially the season he's been having with the Seattle Sounders, and also he has 25 caps. Now, in terms of the forward position, we got Brenden Aaronson, one of the most talented and probably a player that is going to be that future number 10 for the U.S. men's national team, currently playing for RB Salzburg and have 7 caps, and I've heard he has looked very impressed with RB Salzburg right now. Then you got Conrad de la Fuente with Olympico Marseille with 1 caps, followed by Jordan Falk with BSC Young Boys and currently have 6 caps. Now, these 2 players are the only 2 players that I don't really have a good clue who they are. And, you know, it's not a surprise because both of them have only been combined with 7 caps with the national team. But then the next player, which is the only player that is actually making his first ever country appearance for the U.S. men's national team and selected for the very first time for the U.S. men's national team, it's Ricardo Pepe. And, you know, we talk about this discussion, I think maybe doing my review in the All-Star game, about how there was a question whether or not if Ricardo Pepe was going to represent the U.S. or represent Mexico. I mean, there was a lot of sources kind of conflicting each other, saying that, you know, one source is saying that he's going to represent the U.S. and then the other source basically saying he's going to be representing Mexico. But at the end of the day, Ricardo Pepe today actually tweeted out that, you know, while he he grew up in El Paso, and, you know, he obviously does visit some of his relatives across the border in Santa Cruz, he felt proud to be representing the U.S. men's national team rather than the Mexican national team. And I think this is a huge thing and really a huge grab for the U.S. Soccer Federation, because we talk about how Ricardo Pepe, you know, he's only 18 years old, but he's already started to show that flash of, you know, I don't want to say he's showing the flash of Clint Dempsey, because I think that would be a little bit overboard to say that he is basically the next Clint Dempsey for this U.S. men's national team. But hey, you know, he's definitely showing that flash, and you could even say that he could maybe even be the starters in this U.S. men's national team too, because when you look at this roster, you know, there is no Jersey Zardes in this roster, which was kind of a little bit of a surprise, because I thought Zardes had a relatively good Gold Cup, and I thought they would give him another chance to be with this team in the World Cup qualifier. No Daryl DK in this U.S. men's national team, although I think DK is currently still injured right now, so that's why he's not available in this team. But, you know, this does give a chance for Pepe to not only make his first appearance for the U.S., but also potentially starting, because, you know, while I think it could be Sargent, the one that starts up front for the national team, I won't be surprised Ricardo Pepe might be considering that spot, considering, you know, if you look at two of these players and who has the best form coming into this World Cup qualifier, it has to be Ricardo Pepe. No doubt, having an incredible season so far with FC Dallas, and no doubt could be the next big American that is making the jump to Europe and get that big money move in Europe. Then we got, of course, Christian Pulisic, who is no doubt the biggest name of this U.S. men's national team, currently playing for Chelsea with 38 caps. Then you got Gio Reyna, another big name player from the U.S. men's national team, playing for Borussia Dortmund with 8 caps. Then, of course, as I mentioned, you have Josh Sargent playing for Norwich City now and had 16 caps. And you got Tim Weah currently playing for Lille with 13 caps. Good to see Tim Weah being back into this roster after, you know, he's been kind of been on the IL for a bit, but looks like he is able to be healthy, and I'm assuming he's probably going to be starting in the well, actually, I don't know if he is going to be starting in the wing area in this one, but we shall see if that is going to be the case. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for the U.S. men's national team roster. Obviously, I know there was definitely a lot of players on. There were definitely some players that kind of got snubbed in terms of this roster, but as I said in the beginning of the video, this is only the roster for the September World Cup Qualifier and only the first free game of the World Cup Qualifier. I mean, Gregg Berhalter still has a chance. When the October World Cup Qualifier start, he can make some adjustment to this roster. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this roster? Do you think Gregg Berhalter did a good job in terms of picking the right guys to be playing in those first 3 games in the World Cup qualifier? I mean, I'm not gonna jump to conclusion and say that some of these players don't deserve to be on there, or some of them definitely deserve to be on there, until when they actually play in those 3 World Cup qualifiers, see how their performance is. I mean, I'm not going to be like those people from the U.S. men's national team Reddit and Twitter page that is clearly already jumping the gun, saying that this is an absolute awful roster before we even play a game in the World Cup qualifier. But yeah, you know, this is a big moment for this team, and this is something that this team has been worked for a couple of years now to lead to this point. Because as much as, you know, I know this year it's been an incredible year for the U.S. men's national team, and that, you know, winning not only the Gold Cup but also the Nations League, and did it both against Mexico. You know, that's great and all, but this is really the biggest thing, and this is really kind of the biggest test for this team. I mean, I even said before that, you know, as great as we did winning the Gold Cup and the Nations League, I would literally trade both of those in order for us to qualify for the World Cup, because there's no doubt that there is a lot of pressure for this team, and even a lot of pressure on Gregg Berhalter too, knowing the fact that, you know, he's got to get this team to qualify for the World Cup. Like, there's absolutely no excuse this time that this team does not qualify for the World Cup. I mean, yes, it might be a relatively young squad, but it should be a good enough squad, especially what they have been doing, even in some of those high pressure kind of games where they're able to come through. And that, again, there's just no excuse whatsoever for this team to not make it to the World Cup in Qatar in 2022. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video? And as I mentioned, what do you think of this roster? And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.